In episode 8, we got a little bit of Victor's backstory. It was just a very small amount of it, but it's still quite interesting.
I need you to be brave. I am counting on you.
Victor, what's wrong?
Protect your sister.
Please don't go, Mommy.
We find out that not only does Victor have a sister, but that his mother wanted to save the children locked up in the tower. And okay, wow. My first assumption, of course, is that the tower his mother was talking about is the lighthouse. The first time we ever see it in the series is when Boyd and Sarah went out into the woods to look for a way out of Fromland. But something very interesting happened the night before they found it. Somehow, the tent that Boyd and Sarah were sleeping in was moved quite a lot of distance away from where they initially set it up. And it's at that point that we see the light and hear the horn for the first time ever.
We shouldn't have come here.
When Boyd starts losing hope and wants to give up, Sarah helps him out and they decide to keep on heading for the lighthouse before the nighttime comes. But what's most interesting to me about this situation is what happens next. The boy in white directs Sarah to go into this faraway tree and he tells her that they'll be safe in there. Because of that, Boyd finds Martin at the dungeon. And this is where he ends up getting infected with the worms as well as with the music box. Martin tells Boyd the other monsters will set up traps to catch you. And they're set up at places that the trees will send you. In season 1, Tabitha has a vision of herself climbing up the lighthouse. And afterwards, she finds Jim's body hanging from the ceiling. So I started thinking about this and I noticed that the visions these people have are almost always warnings. They accurately foretell bad things that will happen in the future. And we know this because of Victor. Victor's drawings are all based off of visions that he had at one point or another. And even when he thought that they were dreams, but clearly they mean a lot more than just dreams. The visions are always warnings about bad things that will happen in the future. Because of that, it makes me think, what if the lighthouse isn't a good thing? What if Tabitha's vision was a warning? What if it's a trap set up by the entity or a different type of monster that we haven't seen yet? We don't know for sure if the lighthouse and the dungeon are the same building or if they're different ones. But I have an idea of what the purpose of the dungeon is, and that is going to be my next video. But I think it's interesting that Boyd and Sarah were trying to get to the lighthouse, but the boy in white stopped them from doing it. If the boy in white is on our side, then it'd make sense that he'd stop Boyd and Sarah from making the mistake of going to the lighthouse. Victor's mother thought that the kids were locked up in the tower and that if she freed them, everybody would be able to go home. But think about this from the perspective of a monster. If you convinced a mother that she could save not only her own children, but a bunch of others as well, she would be willing to do anything it takes in order for her to do it, which makes it the perfect trap, especially for mothers. We never got an explanation about how Victor's mother came to the conclusion that the tower is where the children are being kept. And that makes me wonder, what if she was being manipulated somehow, like Sarah was manipulated by the voices? Or what if Victor himself is manipulating Tabitha? Found it incredibly intriguing that Victor completely forgot that he used to have a sister. But what if it wasn't because of the trauma? What if it was done on purpose by the entity, for example? The way he forgot about his sister, it's almost like poof magic. And it's really crazy to think about. And it makes you wonder, could the reason why the boy in white stopped appearing to Victor be because he knows that Victor's been assimilated into the entity? unknowingly infected by this demon and he had no idea about it. Kind of like Will Byers from Stranger Things, because something very similar happened to him. What Victor's selective amnesia means for the story is that he could be the mole without even knowing it. He could be a sleeper agent and he'd have no fucking idea about it. And I also know that the boy in white appears to Victor during the Colony House massacre, but I have an idea about what could have been going on there. And it's gonna be in my next video, which is definitely gonna be one of my most powerful theories for sure. I know that for sure. But if you look at the cave drawings, you can see that the lighthouse is colored red. And you can also see that the entity himself is also depicted with red. And many of us assume his followers are the red figures dancing around the crops over here. And that makes a lot of sense to me because both of them are colored in red. But I just want you to remember we saw the trees or the giant spiders or whatever that was moving Boyd's tent in the direction of the lighthouse. It was almost like it wanted Boyd and Sarah to go to the lighthouse. But the boy in white stopped them. When we look at the promos for episode 10, we can see that Jade finds the altars for the children and it appears to be in the underground caves, not in the lighthouse. And Victor said his mom went to the lighthouse to free the children, but the children aren't in the lighthouse. So what's going on here? And we also know that Tabitha is definitively going to the lighthouse because of the promos and the trailer. So I wonder what is she gonna find at the top of the stairs. And actually, holy shit, I just realized something. The name of this episode is Once Upon a Time, which means this is when we're gonna find out what the story is. And that makes me wonder, what if the only thing that Tabitha finds in the lighthouse is a book? A book telling the entire story. That would be interesting. Whether it's a trap or something good, I've been hyped for the lighthouse for an entire year, so I can't wait to see the revelations of this episode. And I mean, just take a look at how big the lighthouse is. There's no space in there for locking up anybody, and definitely not locking up a bunch of kids. There's not enough space for that.